Hey everybody, Mike Houts, co-host of the Crew Reviews. Thank you for watching the #1 thriller suspense novel podcast on the planet. We do all to you, our viewers. On today's episode, we bring you the New York Times best-selling author-writing duo of Brandon Webb and John David Mann. Brandon is a retired, decorated Navy SEAL sniper whose exploits have been well documented in numerous nonfiction titles, including The Killing School, Among Heroes, and The Red Circle. John David Mann is a celebrated writer who co-authored many of the nonfiction titles of Brandon, and the two now deliver a unique thriller series, equal parts crime procedural and action. The second title, Cold Fear, out this past June, is today's focus. Let's get to it. Sean, let's welcome to the show Brandon Webb and John David Mann. How are you guys? How's things?
Welcome. Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Good to have you both. I know we've been trying to get this out and out to the fan base for a little while yet, but now we've got it all together, and so I'm really looking forward to today. So, like I said, welcome to the Crew Reviews. You are a collaborative writing duo, and your latest is Cold Fear. Hit the bookshelves in June. And so, yeah, can you two do a collaborative, spoiler-free look and summary on this latest novel of yours?
Go for it, John.
Uh-oh, he's up first.
Well, it's no spoiler to say that it is in Iceland. The first book, which came out last year, Steel Fear, took place on an aircraft carrier. And part of the fun of that was the locked room mystery deal in this foreign environment of the aircraft carrier. So we were like, where do you go next? Well, where we went was Reykjavik, Iceland. Another strange foreign environment.
Right.
And there's two plot lines that converge. There's, in the opening, there's a young girl who runs through the streets of Reykjavik barefoot in the middle of winter, slips under the ice in the duck pond, and drowns herself.
Wow.
Nobody knows why. It's completely freakish mystery. And it just so happens that our hero, Chief Finn, who is a disgraced Navy SEAL chief who is now a fugitive from the law, lands that very night in Reykjavik and crosses paths with this strange mystery and somehow gets tangled up in it. He's there to chase down some leads on whatever happened in this war crime rogue mission went bad that he's being blamed for. So it's kind of a tangle of lots of different mysteries and whodunits that all get tangled up together.
Yeah. So
that's all I'll say.
How did it happen? I don't know, because we'll have to find out. Well, in the story, there's a SEAL team that's kind of a rogue element. And for us, regular folk, that seems pretty far-fetched, right? In the real world, but this is precisely what your protagonist, Finn, finds himself up against. Over the years, individual SEALs have made headlines with sometimes not so legal activities, let's just say. And I kind of want to direct this to you, Brandon. Would the SEAL community take care of a rogue element in their own private manner if this would come to pass, or would this kind of end up in a Navy JAG kind of situation?
I think it depends. John and I have no shortage of real material to draw on. It's just, I think, without going too far down the proverbial rabbit hole, that you look at any long period of conflict, Vietnam, for instance, where, you look at the amount of movies and stories coming out of Vietnam, after that war ended with, people smuggling drugs and dead corpses out of the country, just crazy stuff. I think you inevitably end up in war with just crazy stuff happening, which has happened in Afghanistan. And so would some rogue element try and clean up their dirty laundry? Potentially, yeah. I think it's super believable. But also very likely, depending on the situation, that it could be a JAG issue, which, spoiler alert, we have some JAG activity in book 3. And so, yeah, I think one of the things I think that make John and I such a good team is we bring a lot of different perspectives to the table, and a massive network to kind of draw on. Even, you know, along one of the main plot lines in Cold Fear, you know, we're able to kind of read the geopolitical tea leaves. I run a site, a foreign policy and military news site called sofrep.com. And so we're tracking the whole Ukraine-Russia situation long before Putin invaded Ukraine.
Right.
And you'll see a lot of things come, you know, it's like reading the news when you're reading Cold Fear.
Nice. All right.
Well, our colleague, Chris Albanese, who's a former Secret Service agent, is not here, but we were discussing this book when we first were attempting to interview you guys, and our schedules got all messed up. But Chris had a really funny comment. We were talking about, this is a work of fiction, but you are writing about a rogue SEAL team, and he was saying, well, if I wrote about murderous Secret Service agents, he'd get a lot of shit from his former colleagues, including his wife, who's an active duty Secret Service agent. And Brandon, you were on a SEAL team. So just curiosity, do your former teammates ever give you crap for quote, making your fictional unit look bad? And if you just point to John David and say, well, it was really his idea.
No, I mean, look, Jesus, I've had numerous conversations early on with Chris Kyle, even before he was tragically killed in Texas. Kyle and Luttrell and I used to talk about it. We took so much shit from our community for being among the first guys since really Dick Marcinko, who wrote Rogue Warrior.
Right.
I've taken with the other guys a lot of heat for being, you know, anytime you're first to do something, you're going to take a lot of heat. You're first through the door is the first guy that takes shots, you know? So
yeah,
it's been rough, I would say, but I just kind of developed a thick skin, and my whole ethos along the entire process when I first started with my memoir, The Red Circle, was, okay, am I representing the community in a positive way? And, you know, am I being professional? Okay, as long as those two things are covered, I don't have any problem with it. Because, and now you look at it, like one of my biggest critics has a huge podcast, probably the biggest SEAL podcasts out there. And he was a critic when he was active duty, and now he's kind of gets it. You know, it's like when you have perspective when you're on the outside and go, okay, the military's over. What do I do with my career now? Everybody has to make a living. And right. For me, I grew up on a sailboat. I read books. I had no television, very little access to television as a kid. I played Dungeons and Dragons. I like storytelling. I like creating things. And you know, I love what I do. I love working with John. Him and I both have our own side projects, but I feel like we really have something special with this collaboration. And I'm, you know, John is an incredible writer, and I feel like sometimes you know, John's like, hey, let's huck off this Black Diamond cliff. I'm like, hey, I'm still on the green slopes. You know, he forces me to raise the bar, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shortage of Navy SEALs writing books or becoming in the public eye anymore. So
yeah, not now, but back
early on
when we started out.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to add that I mean, I have never served in the military myself, but I spent over a decade with Brandon working on 8 projects now, and in the course of which I've interviewed dozens and dozens of his friends, former teammates, their family, and sort of the whole community. And so I also feel sort of this third party sense of responsibility to get this stuff right.
Yeah.
In Cold Fear, aside from the rogue mission that you mentioned, that's in the backstory of the whole Finn saga, in Cold Fear, there are 3 former teammates that Finn is tracking down who are questionable, who are elements of this rogue
right.
squad. And also there's a former Navy SEAL who's now a contract killer who's in Iceland to track Finn down and kill him before he tells any secrets. So there's this whole range of dirty SEALs.
Right.
with Finn himself is kind of on a spectrum of gray. He's not even quite sure whether he's guilty of some of this shit or not. He doesn't think he is, but he can't remember because he's got holes in his memory. So we're dealing with these shades of gray. And when we were writing it, there was a lot in the press about shades of gray in the police force. Right. That was a very, very big topic at the time. And I think we acquitted ourselves well. Well, I think that at his core, Finn is an honorable person. Yeah. In the same way, at its core, the whole military force we're talking about is an honorable force. But we just want to go in with our eyes open and say, yeah, man, this is the human condition, as Brandon says, after over a decade of stress of constant warfare. So it's all like it is and don't pull punches.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing that from an outside perspective that I see with your collaboration is that in any endeavor, if you are something, if you're a police officer, if you're a military person, if you're a doctor, there's certain things you do or you assume people sort of know about just because you're so accustomed to them. And I think having the outsider or the other viewpoint, asking those questions and with the intellectual curiosity is like, well, what would you do in this situation? Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that because I just do it. Right. And I think that comes out in the writing where, we don't all analyze every single thing we do naturally. And so as a former SEAL, I'm sure there are things that you just take for granted that the character would do. So having John David's perspective to say, well, wait a second, why would you do that?
Right.
You can tell that. I feel like that's going on behind the scenes because there's that right amount of explanation. You don't spoon feed us, but you also don't leave a lot of question into, in the little corners of the scenes.
All right. We've read a lot of fictional novels using Iceland as a setting for stories, as you've done in Cold Fear. And so from your perspective, and we've heard this from some other authors too, is what's it about this remote country that has such a cultural history that lends such a strong sense of place for action and adventure? It just seems like it's just a natural playground for this type of activity, this kind of storyline. Have you guys visited, or how did you draw the storyline into that?
I took a trip to Iceland, and it really had an impact on me because I travel quite a bit.
Yeah,
and it's very rare these days to go a place where you really feel like you're in a foreign country. And Iceland, Moscow, Ukraine, I've been to those. Those feel very foreign. There's not a whole lot of welcome signs in English. And Iceland's a trip. The first time I went there with a buddy for New Year's, and there's only a few hours of daylight a day, and they celebrate New Year's in a very strange way with all these crazy fireworks. And John and I were trying to think of, we really liked exploring in Steel Fear that single location and really kind of painting a picture of the aircraft carrier life, which I think, John did an incredible job with, because again, it seems natural to me, but to describe that environment, it's challenging to describe it to a layperson. And we're like, we really want to, looking at the recipe that worked for Steel Fear, what's this single environment that we can really dig into and explore and make someone feel like they've been to Iceland and had an education? I mean, I'm a huge James Michener fan, and one of the things I love about reading Michener is I feel like I'm getting what history class should have been, right?
Right, exactly, right.
And John, I think it was John, he's like, wow, we should do Iceland. And so and I think it worked out well.
It's like there's this obvious physical stuff. I mean, the physical traits of Iceland are kind of wild and bizarre. The 3 hours of daylight, as Brandon's saying, they call it the land of fire and ice, all these volcanoes and icebergs and earthquakes. That's all there. But there's also, like, sociologically and culturally, it's a really unique place. And the word unique is overused, but Iceland, man, it's like you got a culture where people don't use last names. They call each other by their first name, even in formal settings. The first head of state of any country in the earth was in Iceland. They have the most They're famous for the most sort of greatest gender parity and sort of social justice, and they have all these ways in which they pioneered civilization. They had the biggest boom and worst crash during the financial crisis a decade ago. You know, it's like,
that's right.
They're just they're still Norse Vikings, kind of, you know, exploring the world.
Yeah.
That crash too, like very much like, hey, we're going to pull up our socks and get it done ourselves, as opposed to other countries that rhyme with Greece. Like, just give us the money.
Yes.
Iceland, they bailed themselves out.
They're such Vikings. It's crazy. That's right.
Yeah.
They just pull themselves up and say, hey, man, nothing puts them down.
Well,
yeah, it's really fun.
Well, sticking with setting, because some of my favorite books, the setting is a character into itself, and both of your books are that way, and I love that. I think that adds a great amount to the reading experience. But throughout this book, there are several references that there's basically no crime in Iceland, and that kind of was bouncing around in my head. And why is it? I mean, is it the climate isn't great and people are too damn cold to commit crime, or is it because, does it have something to do with that? It's more about the fabric of the society and this sense of culture and identity. Is what did you guys take anything away to kind of,
you know, when you have a kid in Iceland and you want to give him a name, as you do with your kid, right?
Yeah.
You can't just give him any name. You have to like look on the register of officially sanctioned names.
Dang.
And it's wild. They have a DNA database of every Icelandic resident, not counting foreign residents, right?
Yeah.
Every Icelandic resident. And that's not just like Big Brother. It's because in part they want to, you know, be careful about intermarrying. It's a really closed, right?
Wow.
It's a really closed clan-like society. It's the population is very tiny. The country is very tiny. And I think in part there's very little crime because they have a long tradition of battling the elements. And in order to do that, getting along. I mean, there is crime, but a lot of it is like, you know, beat up on your best friend, beat up your wife kind of crime. Maybe a murder a year.
Hard to go on the lam in Iceland.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go volcano, hang on the volcano for a couple.
Yeah.
Oh my God. By my count, you two have collaborated on what, 8 books now, fiction and nonfiction. So obviously there's a lot to learn in your working relationship. I mean, Sean and I and Chris, you know, we've learned a lot over the past 3 years together, and you guys have been at it probably longer than that. So do you feel like you've really dialed it in now between the two of you, or are you still discovering things that are like, wow, why didn't we do that the last 8 books? Like, this is so much better, or this guy is much worse than I thought he was as a human being. I mean, where are you guys at in terms of your relationship, in terms of learning new things that are making it better and better each time?
Well, I'll just say this for starters, that you know, first off, we've written 2 novels together. We're working on a 3rd now. So 8 books, but the first 5 were nonfiction, and it's really different. It is for us anyway, because with the nonfiction books, the job is much simpler and much clearer. We're taking actual history and rendering on the page, or in the case of the Mastering Fear and Total Focus, we're dealing with sort of a how-to, reflecting on experiences and giving you how-to principles. Now we're making up, you know, a thriller. It's a whole different. So I think we're still very much learning how to make this recipe work.
How about you, Brian?
Yeah, no, I would say the same. You know, and I think there's strengths and weaknesses on both sides, and we work well together. And you know, and I think there's, as you guys know, there's like the business of writing too. It's like, you know, we're looking at, you know, I pushed John hard to switch our film and TV rights to a different agency. And we have an amazing literary agent, but it was a tough call. And I think ironically, our literary agency, or our literary agent, Alyssa, was like, hey, if you guys aren't happy, just go to WME. And now she's at WME.
Oh, wow.
It's all
maybe that was like a friend.
Yeah, but no, it's been great, and like
it's a move I never would have made on my own, that's for sure. Yeah, it's
right?
been really interesting following Brandon's lead.
Yeah, so there's, you know, and I follow a lot of John's lead on the writing side, and it's I just, you know, I have no problem with that. yeah, it's been fun, and I'm really excited about, we're hopefully going to get the rights sold off and in a series made, which I'm excited about.
No kidding.
And then something I did want to bring up, because it doesn't really come up too much. We mentioned it maybe one other time, but John and I went to battle for this cover. Yeah, I love it. I'm looking at his backdrop. I'm like, that's the cover we wanted. That's the cover we wanted. It's just one of those things I think most listeners don't realize. Sometimes you don't have a lot of like control. John and I are still kind of getting our feet under us, and kind of, the more successful the books are, the more say we'll have. But God, we went to battle over the cover. We're like, we want to capture Iceland on the cover. And I think the US cover of Cold Fear definitely says thriller, and it's a good cover. But I went round and round until finally John was like, you just got to let it go. Because I was like, this looks like Minnesota. It doesn't look like Iceland, But
that's where a lot of them ended up anyway.
But that's funny, because
that's true.
We have a ton of authors in the show, some of them extremely accomplished, and some of them have zero say in their cover.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think that at the level some of them are at, that they would be able to say, you know what? No. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they get a little bit of input, but as far as my inclination is be out, okay, here's what I want, and I know that's not the reality for a lot of authors. So that fascinates us a little bit. I want to kind of riff off something you guys just were talking about the first books were nonfiction and now you're in fiction. What were you able to take away from your nonfiction collaboration to the fiction? Like what was an easy sort of roll in?
I'll speak for myself, because it's like the nonfiction books were almost 100% me taking Brandon's lead. And what I mean by that is Brandon would have an idea for a book. The memoir, our first book was his memoir, The Red Circle. Obviously, he didn't have an idea for a book. He had a whole lifetime for a book.
Right.
But all the other books, Brandon had an idea for a book, and he had this experience set to back up that idea. And so it was a situation of me sort of taking his lead and saying, okay, how can I play with that? How can I participate in that? Basically, if it was a dance, he was leading, right?
Yeah.
And that worked out really well, and we've kind of taken that into the fiction realm. Steel Fear was an experience of Brandon's that was the seed of that plot line, an experience he had on the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
Cold Fear, not only had Brandon been to Iceland, which I had not, and still haven't, but also he had the seminal idea, which I can't reveal because it's only revealed at the end of the book. I would have to kill all your listeners. Brandon had this crazy idea based on something they'd written about in SOFREP. And now we're working on book 3, and book 3 is set in a place that Brandon knows well. And he has sort of the germ of the plot line. So it's kind of like Brandon is a great idea guy. He comes up with these creative ideas, pitches the ideas to me, and I say, whoa, I'll catch that football and see if I can run somewhere with it. And that model, I guess so far anyway, it seems to be the way we roll, and it's worked equally well in fiction as nonfiction.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, have you two talked about maybe another nonfiction title, or do you feel like you two are kind of locked into the mindset that you're going to continue solely on the fictional side of things?
I mean, for me, as I do often, I come up with these crazy ideas and I pitch them by Alyssa, our agent, and her last scolding was, damn it, I'm trying to, build you and John into a brand on the fiction side, just stick to fiction. So even like I'm working on a side project right now about the first group of women through SEAL training.
Oh, wow.
That I might be able to wrangle John into down the line.
Yeah. Consider me open. I'm open, Chief. I'm
30,000 words in. But, I feel like, we've got a tiger by the tail, and it's one of the things I've always thought John is a brilliant writer, and I was like, as his amazing wife Anna is pushing him, like, let's do fiction, but it takes it takes a lot of guts, because nonfiction, as as many authors know, you can just, John and I sold Mastering Fear on an email, like 2-paragraph proposal.
Wow, no kidding.
Can't do that with fiction. You have to turn in the entire manuscript, and it takes a lot of work.
Right.
And then, you hopefully get paid. And so,
but
Right.
I'll tell you too, though, one more point on that is that, each Finn book has its own arc within the book. There's a mystery that gets solved. By the time you turn the last page of the book, you know who the serial killer was,
Right.
or why she went under the ice. You know the answer to the book's question, but there's this larger arc of Finn's own background, his own backstory, his own personal mystery, which he's carrying around trying to solve. And that's going to take, we don't know how many books, 5 books, 7 books, going to take a bunch of books. So we have kind of a big meta book in front of us. That's a lot of work ahead on that. No time to look around too much to the right or left.
Yeah.
When people maybe first encounter the blurbs of your books, whether it be Cold Fear or Steel Fear, the assumption might be, and largely based on what's out there in the genre, that this is a military thriller, it's a military actioner. And while there's certain elements of that in the books, they're really police procedurals as much as anything. And they're crime books as much as they are the military thriller. When you guys set out to create these stories and this character, was that territory you staked out intentionally, or was it just a natural progression of the story you started to tell?
I think it planted the seeds, but like, I know John is very much into, crime thrillers.
Yeah.
I think that influence is obvious. And I think what's cool is we have this mixed genre. It's not your typical,
Right.
I mean, they're great. I love Brad Thor. Just had him on our podcast, the Software podcast a few weeks ago. Clancy as well, but I like the fact that we're doing something a little bit unique as well. It just hasn't, I don't think it's been done that much before. And I like the idea that people would pick up the book and be surprised, like, oh, this is great, but not.
Yeah, it's not a run and gun every single time they turn a page. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Exactly.
Well,
it works great.
Yeah. And you kind of hinted at future titles here, some more work ahead of you. So what's kind of next for this dynamic duo that you guys are working on here?
Well, we're working on book 3. Book 3,
Okay.
Giveaway title here. Book 3 is called Blind Fear.
Oh, nice.
And I'll just drop a few broad hints. One fun tidbit is 2 of the protagonists are kids. We got some ages 8 and 11. So yeah, that's really fun. There is a character who is blind, no surprise. And before it's over, there will be a deadly hurricane. And I've already said too much.
That narrows down some territory. That's awesome.
We have a, and I'm speaking more to Mr. Webb here because you're not as familiar as John David might be, but we have a lot of writer geeks and I say that lovingly, in our audience. We have a lot of people who are just thriller and crime fiction fans and storytelling fans, but we have a lot of budding writers, active writers, hopeful writers. So this is more of a geek question, and it goes to character. You guys touched on this a little bit in your earlier answer, but as a reader, I never question that Finn's heart is in the right place. He's got a core of goodness in his heart, but like all the best heroes and all the best characters in my favorite books, he's got significant flaws and is quite troubled. He's got a lot going on. Can you guys share a little bit about how you went about constructing such a rich and multi-dimensional protagonist?
I'll let John take this one because really Finn is John's creation. I can take credit for Monica, but partial credit.
Yeah, for sure.
Finn, I think, is, I think a culmination of John's experience personally and working with me, but I'll let you take it over, John.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I love the way Sean, the way you premise that, and it's funny if you start out with a character, if you start with how handsome and strong and brave they are, it's like, where do you go from there? It's like, okay, this guy's got to be screwed up somewhere, right? If you start with how screwed up this guy is and his obvious flaws and deficiencies and freakishness, it's a great place to start because, you naturally want to go looking for, but what's inside? And that's, kind of where Finn is. In Steel Fear, he's almost like he's on the autistic spectrum or something. And he even wonders, he doesn't say these words, if he's a little bit psychotic, sociopathic, because he says at one point he doesn't experience empathy. His feelings were like surgically removed at birth or something. It's not true, but he wonders that about himself. Finn is based on, Brandon and I talked about this, and he gives me the credit for it, but it was a joint affair. We both wanted to give readers as much as we could the opposite of a lot of popular common expectations of a military hero.
Yeah.
Steel Fear is not, Finn is not G.I. Joe. Finn is not a Hollywood Navy SEAL. Finn looks a little scrawny, strange looking, messed up, quiet.
Rami Malek is a good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Picture Rami, and there you got Finn. It's really awesome.
Not
and
I was saying Steve Buscemi, but no, it's Ryan Malek is.
And I'll admit, Finn pulls a lot from Brandon's life. There's a lot about his biography that's really borrowed from Brandon's biography. They both grew up in California docks. They both have done this. They both have done that. They're both really great with water. They both had zero experience with guns before they got into SEAL training. It's funny almost how much Brandon and I pulled into Finn's story. But there's a core of him, this traumatized core, which we actually borrowed from another guy that we know who's not Brandon. And then from there, he just kind of evolved into this, strange, as Monica calls him, this, I don't know how blue I can be on this podcast. This strange,
100%.
Cool. She says, not Monica, but Carol, his girlfriend, tells him he has one fucked up mass of contradictions, and he is, and he he doesn't even understand it himself.
No, that describes our show, so that's perfect. That's a good segue.
That's actually our tagline. We've been working on a promo.
I like
Perfect.
it. Good branding.
Well, gentlemen, congratulations on Cold Fear. You guys, this was a fantastic book. And you have now survived the main portion of our show. And we go into something now called the lightning round. And I'm quite thrilled that Brandon has no idea what's coming. And we're going to ask.
As I'm on my second glass of.
That's perfect.
Yeah, we were strategically waiting for you to get a little bit of that.
So here we go in the lightning round. I am the host today, so I'm going to go first up. And this one goes to Brandon. Brandon, what was the over and under on how many hours John would last in buds?
I think if John showed up to buds, no, if he showed up to buds, he'd probably have the mental chops to make it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Throw in the ocean with the cold water.
I wouldn't bet against John.
I like that answer.
All right. This one's for John then. Which Disney princess does Brandon remind you most of?
I'd have to go with Ariel because, water.
Okay.
Perfect. Good at this. You guys are way better at this.
Oh, good. Yeah. Usually there's a lot more threatening manner here. Okay. So overt threats are encouraged on this question then. As both of you have created multi-million-dollar companies, who is the better entrepreneur?
Who gets to answer first? I do. Bing, 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 bing. No question, hands down, Brandon. I play at it, but he does it.
Oh, and now is Brandon going to accept this, or is he going to throw back some love to?
He's accepted it. I can see it.
I'll accept it.
Because it's true, damn it.
And caveat that John's the better writer. Like I learn from him every day. So.
We've got our corners. We've each got our corners.
That's awesome.
I like it. All right. So my question builds on his first question. John apparently has made it through SEAL training. And he's on your team, and you guys are stacked on a door about to make entry. Where in the stack is John, and what is his role?
So we have a saying
in front, cannon fodder. I'm sorry, you were going to say?
We have a saying in the SEAL teams, like either you're a breacher or a sniper, and the breacher is definitely carrying the heavy equipment. So John's probably directing traffic, either comms guy or platoon leader, more focused on strategy, that kind of thing. But not the big guy putting charges on the door.
Less of a walking sandbag. Got it.
You guys, I'm 125 sopping wet. So
Yeah.
Which I had a guy like that in my SEAL platoon
Yeah.
called the Rat.
Me too, because if I have to carry somebody who's injured, I want him to weigh 125 pounds.
there you go.
No, all right. So Disney comes calling and wants you two to write a new script for a new Marvel movie. So Brandon, you get to pick the character, but John, you get to pick the title.
Oh, character, new Marvel movie.
And it can be any character. It can even be a character that's already been done, just something that maybe a new spin on.
Oh, I'm just thinking of like this nasty, like guy that's come out of the sewer of New York.
That boy.
Cast off.
All right, what's the title, John?
Captain Filth.
Captain Phil. Mike, did you slip them the questions early?
These are brilliant. I'm going to drop that character.
Yeah, Captain Phil.
I like him already.
Yeah.
You know, is metaphoric? Is it physical or is it like mental?
Smells like money. Here we go.
Okay.
Smells like money.
The final question isn't really a funny one. It's just more of a philosophical one from you guys. Thriller writers are often trying to get ahead of the news and future conflicts, and you have soft rep, which obviously spends a lot of time doing that. But where do you guys see the next significant conflict that the U.S. is involved in? And I don't necessarily mean boots on the ground. I just mean something that we're really wrapped up in.
I would say probably China, Taiwan, maybe not less militarily wrapped up in, but politically wrapped up in. I feel like, China's got its eye on Taiwan. When you look at who wins in the Russia-Ukraine situation, I feel like this war is going to drag on for probably another year. China will probably broker a peace deal and look like the good guys that ended it all. And guess what? When Visa and MasterCard pulls out of China, what fintech are they using? When Visa and MasterCard pull out of Russia, what fintech are they using? It's all Chinese fintech. Yeah. So, and China is, they're very patient. But yeah, I think Taiwan would be my guess.
All right.
There's a line in Cold Fear where Trigvi says, "You Americans think we are patient, think we are polite. We are not polite, just tolerant. We've been here a long time."
Yeah.
He could have been talking about the Chinese.
Funny, we actually discussed that that was going to be the basis of one of the questions, but you guys kind of answered what we were going to ask. That's a great line.
I'll tell you guys this too. Brad Thor and I were talking about this the last time we were together. When we were discussing with some movie or studio executives about replacing Iran as one of the protagonists in our books for film, and they're like, "Oh, it's simple. We'll just put in China." Oh, we can't do China.
Oh yeah,
China has too much money in Hollywood, and I think that look, I'm pretty independent politically, but I was shocked. I'm like, really? Like China has that much influence in American entertainment? And the answer is yes. Look what happened with the NBA, and I think also you look at TikTok China is basically owned by the state.
Yeah.
And imagine the data they're collecting on American kids with TikTok. I don't care where you lean politically. It's something to think about. Now
they're buying our farmland too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen, congratulations again. It was wonderful to finally hook up with you guys and dynamic duo Cold Fear.
And buy Steel Fear if you haven't read that, because that's a hell of a start.
Thanks, guys.
This was a lot of fun to read. I can't wait for you guys to come up with the next title. And make sure you keep your eye out for Captain Stinky coming your way.
Captain Phil.
Filthy. Captain Phil. Captain Phil.
Captain Phil. So cheers to everybody. Have a good day. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Long live Finn.
Johnny boy. Webb and Mann on their show today in Cold Fear. Great book. A little bit of action, but also a little police procedural, as you mentioned during the interview. And so this combination does a great job in delivering a wonderful book. And make sure you get all their older titles as well. And we got the up and coming title that they referenced in the show that you have to go read. I'm not going to say it now. So anyway, Chris, hope you're not getting too sunburnt wherever you are. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Crew Reviews.
Actually, I hope you are getting sunburnt, you son of a bitch.
Damn right. Especially on that little
Said with love. Said with love.
That soft little bottom of yours. Cheers, folks. And we out. Cold fear, and go back and get cold steer. Cold steer.
Still fear. Cold steer. It's about a winters in West Texas.
Wow, I don't want any heat on that meat. I'm gonna screw that up and I'm gonna start over. Here we go. Take whatever now. And you can go back and get their previous book, Cold Steer.
I now have to write a short story called Cold Steer, just because I need to know how it ends.
I like Dick.
The show got really interesting.
You want blue? We went blue.